our party. Is that the first time she's actually running an upper? I think this must be the third.
This is my third with up.
Yes.
And then we did a little experiment, the UD, in between.
Okay. Yes, that's true.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And once again, you're running again. But you have some message that you want to pass also as a former minister of education.
Yeah.
And you have some things that you want to bring forward.
Yes, sir.
Right? And I will take this time for you to bring that show for, especially for some things you have on your flyer.
Okay.
Just run through it so everybody can understand exactly why you should be elected into Parliament.
Okay. First of all, let me take this opportunity to wish you, Ricardo, the family here at Orion, and the St. Martin people here and abroad, Happy New Year. Happy New Year. And, you know, I wish that this year would be a much better year for all of us than last year in particular, but then in the previous years, you know, as we look forward to a new year, a new decade, we also look forward to greater opportunities for us individually, but also collectively as a nation. I see a lot of opportunities, and I think it's as much as we don't want an election now, as much as you hear people saying that this is not the right time for an election, what I see is also an opportunity to try to fix some things. You know, the hurricane came, and it wasn't a good experience. But after the hurricane, you heard people saying, you know, well, Irma exposed a lot of things. And this is an opportunity to fix some things that, you know, we had been ignoring for a while. I think this election, more than any other election, is giving us the opportunity to address some things. And just the mere fact that you see 112 candidates, I think it's the most we've ever had, right? You have a brand new party, you have new parties coming and going, but you have a brand new party made up of exclusively what I would say young people. So you have a lot more young people wanting to get involved. I think they feel the same sense of urgency like a lot of us who've been here, who've been living here. You know, you feel that there's some problems, some challenges, and you want to get involved, you want to help. And then you see more people wanting to get involved. And I think that should give us all a sense of wanting to also do our part as voters. Yes, you're a little frustrated that there's a new election now, but it's also an opportunity to bring about change. And I think true change can come about if we vote responsibly. Because you just asked me, you know, why, you know, would I want to be elected in Parliament? As you may know, I'm working right now at the University of the Bahamas, and I left after thinking for a very long time, you know, what's my contribution here? How much more can I give? And how can my skills be used in a way that makes me feel like I'm growing personally, but also like you're giving back, you know, to something bigger than yourself. And it took a while to make that decision to go to the Bahamas. And then I got the calls, I got a number of calls. But before that, I stayed tuned in, you know. You listen to SOS, you read a little bit of the newspaper online, etc. You hear, oh, Jesus, new elections in St. Martin. Oh, Jesus. But when I finally played with the idea in my head, it was like, okay, so what are you going to do about it? You know, you could stay away and say, yeah, you know, you could complain. And it kind of like, you know, that was the feeling initially. Again. But I believe that I have skills. I think I have a skill set that can be used here at this time. We're going through what looks like a crisis, but I think also an opportunity to grow and to get it right. And I think of all the talented people that are on this island, I think I can also lend my voice, lend my skills to this conversation moving forward. So I'm hoping that I will have a message that would resonate with some people, enough people, that might consider me as, you know, seeing me as your representative in Parliament, or, you know, playing a role that can move this island forward. Yeah.
Now, you know that education is your background.
Yes.
Right? Mm-hmm. What can you do to improve our education?
Oh, wow. For years, I've been talking about a number of different parts of the puzzle, right? Because the education as an issue is a big thing. You hear everybody saying education is the key, education. It's a nice catchphrase, but what does it mean, right? What does it really mean? There are a number of specific things that I think need to be addressed, some on the short term, so you can address certain things with laws, but also on the longer term. On the long term, I really believe that we have to do a complete overhaul of our education system. I've been saying this for at least the last 15 years. And when I say a complete overhaul, I'm thinking about a model for a curriculum that can be given one curriculum throughout the entire island, as crazy as this sounds, throughout the entire island, that will produce, though, the best kind of St. Martin students to not just work and to survive, but to thrive in a St. Martin society, but a student who could be a global student. What am I talking about? I'm talking about, for example, core courses that every St. Martin child should have, and it should be mandated by law. This is the core curriculum for the nation of St. Martin. They have this in other countries where you choose, you say every single St. Martin child that comes out of the school system in St. Martin is versed in XYZ. So civics, for example, culture, history, geography, money management, etc. Every St. Martin child coming out of a modern day curriculum should have that basic education. So when I talk about money management, how to manage your money, how to invest your money, how to understand money, so that as a student, when you leave the education system, you can just go right into the real world and you can do well. When I think of IT, technology, etc., not just how to do a couple of classes here and there, but are we going to produce students that understand technology, but also that can become producers of technology, so that the St. Martin child, the average child with the average curiosity, after having a basic education from the basic curriculum, could see himself, for example, developing an app. And an app may be specific to St. Martin, but maybe an app that the whole world can use. We don't know yet, because the potential is there for every child. The St. Martin child is not any different than the child anywhere else in the world. They are the same. We have the same nose, the same eyes, the same brains, the same extremities. The question is, how do we nurture that? Every society has an opportunity to create the kind of individual they want to function in their society. And oftentimes this is done through institutions, school being one of them. So if you tell yourself, like the Japanese have done, like the other Asian countries have done, like the countries in the Middle East are doing, United States, Europe, etc., everywhere in the world, you create a curriculum that is going to create the product that you want in the society later. So if you know what you want, you create a basic curriculum. So multilingual person, the St. Martin student, all of them would be multilingual. They would be XYZ. And that's a long-term plan. And getting there from where we are right now, you'd have to make some adjustments because it can't happen overnight. It's not something that can happen, okay, we throw it out and we say, this is what we want to produce. These are some of the changes that we need to make. These are some changes that we can make on the short term. These are some changes we can make on the long term. On the short term, where legislation is concerned, for example, the compulsory education law. It's there, compulsory education for every child in St. Martin. But there are some loopholes in the law. There are some real loopholes in the law that can be adjusted immediately to deal with things like how long should a child have lived here before you can say, you must be in school. Is it a child that came yesterday on vacation? Or is it a child that has lived here 3 months, 6 months, or whatever? That's not yet stipulated in the law. And so you get, people who come at the last minute, people who've been here out of school, etc. So you have to address that. There's also another challenge with the compulsory education law, again, where does it have to be your biological child for the child to be part of your home? Does it have to be the child that you are legally responsible for? How do we know for sure that this child didn't, So there are things there, for example, just to make sure that every child in St. Martin gets access to the same quality education. But that's at the lower level. When you go all up to the highest level of education, the tertiary education law, we've been talking about this for years. I started a draft when I left in 2012, when we were thrown out in 2012, we put a concept together for where we think higher education should go. And not just now, not just the University of St. Martin, because what you get is that the University of St. Martin is already created and you have laws that are looked at from, let's say, the Netherlands and Curacao, and they don't fit. The University of St. Martin is a different entity, but it's an entity that is part of a global system of tertiary education. And everywhere in the world it's different. So how are we going to create a law that fits and where the University of St. Martin can fit in, but also future tertiary education institutions? So there are a number of specific things that we can address immediately in education. Language of instruction. You've heard me talk about language of instruction being English in all schools. It sounds crazy because you don't understand what is meant to some people. But the basic premise is if every child in St. Martin is taught all his or her additional subjects in the English language and then learn all the other foreign languages at the right time, because what we do is we teach foreign language at the wrong time. We teach it in secondary school, when in reality foreign languages should be taught at the very early age, which is from kindergarten. And then we make sure that they're mandatory second languages, so like Dutch, like French, I would even say Spanish, right? That every St. Martin child has access to, so that by the time they get to what we call the critical age, which is about 12, 13 years for the average child, every St. Martin child will be pretty much functionally multilingual. If you can do that, then learning all your other subjects throughout your academic career becomes so much easier, and I guarantee you're going to get better performance overall from students in St. Martin. These are things that you can do on a very short-term basis that can automatically improve education, improve the turnout, reduce the dropout, so that as you move forward, you build the curriculum that you're building for the future. Concrete things that can be done, right now within a 4-year period, for example. Yeah?
Now, you talk about I think you touched a little bit about the justice and all that.
Yeah.
If you have any
Yeah, no, I will, yeah.
Right.
Uh-huh.
So, what are the things that you wanted to actually done in the justice system?
Okay, good question. Well, the question is how are we going to approach justice? There are a couple of things that I think we can change concretely. What does justice mean to us? Throughout the world, when we speak of justice, one of the basic principles of justice, universal justice, is that a man or an accused is judged in his language by his peers. That's a basic tenet of justice in the world. What are we doing in St. Martin? Just the opposite. Now, if you create legal studies or call it law program, I recently had the opportunity to write a curriculum, a proposed curriculum, just before the hurricane for the law program in St. Martin. Hurricane came, that's history. But I'm saying there is absolutely no legal basis, there is absolutely no logical reason why law studies, for example, is not done in English in St. Martin. If you do that, you will create more St. Martin lawyers, more St. Martin prosecutors, more St. Martin judges. You will give more St. Martin students the opportunity to get involved in the justice chain, but also to be able to participate in meting out justice to their peers. So then you fulfill that one principle that a man or an accused has a right to be judged in his language and by his peers. That's number one. The other thing that I really want to look at is what does it mean to us when we talk about giving justice to people that we imprison? Or how do we look at prison? Is it to rehabilitate people, or is it really to penalize them and keep them away from society for the rest of their lives, right? So what are the types of things that we are going to heavily penalize? So let's say non-violent crimes, for example. Do we want to lock a guy away for 20 years for a non-violent crime when you can rehabilitate him within a very short time and give him the proper training and have him reintroduced into the society so that he becomes a productive member of society. You don't want to just lock up, try, guy goes out, does the same thing, you lock him back up again. You know, recidivism that we talk about. If we're serious about, you know, reducing recidivism, we have to look at how our laws are. Are they the right laws for this time and this place? Are they doing justice to our people? Are we making sure that we are going after the right criminals, you know, the ones that are really the ones that are causing harm to society, and making sure that we put them away for a while, but also that we give them the opportunity to come back. Because after you've done your time, after you've served, you know, your punishment for your crime, you should be able to come back into the society, you know, and be able to move on, you know. And so we need to look at the whole system and see how are we dealing with justice, and to make sure that our justice is just. Do you understand me? And one of the things I talked about in the previous election that some people said, you shouldn't touch it. Now I see everybody is talking about different forms of it, but what I'm talking about is the decriminalization, for example, of the possession of marijuana. You know, a young guy hanging out with himself, bothering nobody. Do you want to put that person away for so many months, years, for something like that? Or is that something that you want to look at differently? So it's time to talk about real reform within the system, and then the training of our justice personnel. So like the prison guards, the police officers. I had the opportunity to work with the Justice Academy as, you know, somebody who's brought in. I see the potential, but I also see how it is very restrictive. The way it is set up, it is not intended right now to make St. Martiners, and when I say St. Martiners, people who live here, work here, etc., to be in charge and to be the best that they could be in the whole system of criminal justice. So you're constantly importing foreign expertise. You're constantly bringing in human resources for the justice chain. Something is wrong if you can't fulfill that here in St. Martin. So you got to look at how the training is geared and maybe change the curriculum, rewrite it in a way so that it serves St. Martin first. And then it could cooperate with, you know, anybody, anywhere else. It cannot be that our justice system and the training of our justice personnel is first and foremost linked to another entity. That doesn't happen anywhere else in the world. So why are we doing that here in St. Martin? Yeah.
Now, one of the things that dear to your heart is independence. I see you guys in your family ever called for a referendum.
Yes, sir.
Why?
Because it's the most democratic thing to do. If you are going to have a new stage or a new status, or you're proposing a new status, the first thing would be to consult the people. A referendum says, you know, we are asking you, the people, what do you feel about this matter? How do you feel? And what I would recommend, especially having gone from option A to option B, we didn't do C because we know how dangerous that was. And the last one was, we say, the train. So you took the train from A to D. The next thing is independence. The question is yes or no. And we want to be able to ask the people yes or no, because we know B is not working. We've come to that conclusion. You dress it up, you change, you argue, you don't argue. But B is not giving the St. Martin people the opportunity to really be themselves at their fullest. Whether it's in justice, whether it's in education, whether it's in finance, whether it's in talking to Antigua, for example, foreign affairs, you cannot be your best and your fullest right now in this option. So the question is, how do we get to D? How do we get to independence responsibly? How do we cooperate with all our partners to making sure that, you know, when St. Martin transitions to independence and eventually gets its independence, that we do so in a very responsible manner, but that the people are well prepared. And so one of the things I'm proposing is that within 2 years, let's hold a referendum after the election. But let's inform the people. Let's provide the correct information so that we can make a an informed decision as a people with regard to, the choices that will be put before the people in the preparation leading up to independence. So that's one of the things. It's first and foremost. But I also recommend that we put in place a think tank and an independence commission. Because I can imagine, I'm envisioning a commission that will be made up of stakeholders, but also people representing the North, because independence is going to affect them as well. How do we work out so that when we transition, let's say, for example, when you get your St. Martin passport, do you want to automatically do like some countries, give up the Dutch passport? Or do you say, no, you can hold your dual nationality? Do you say then that people in the North who have the French passport, that they also get a St. Martin passport, and under what conditions? So these are things that you want to work out in a commission, but you also want to have a group of grassroots people from all sectors of the society talking to you about the realities of, this new status that we're going into, and hear from them what their fears are, but also hear from them what some of their ideas are for moving forward, and to live in an independent St. Martin. Yeah. Ain't that hard?
That's one of your living babies.
I've been doing this most of my life. And I know, and it's funny that you asked that that is one of my babies, because working now in the Bahamas, you see the difference. You see it when you go to St. Kitts. You go see it. When I've gone to Cuba, I was like, you see, this is my interpretation, a different human being. In terms of we are the same, the youngsters are the same, the kids in the Bahamas dye their hair in strange colors too, they wear clothes below their butt, they do the same things. But there's a different sense of purpose, a different sense of this is my space, and I make no apologies for it. When you live in an independent territory, you see it, you feel it in the air. The young people, their vision is, and their aspirations are very big, and they're universal, as opposed to living in a colony where the most you can think about Holland or France. How am I going to go to school in the Holland? How am I going to go to school? As if you can't function anywhere else, And so you want to be able to say, wait, 37 square miles. Let's look at the 16 for right now. You want to tell me, after over 3 decades of sending away about 200 students a year, you multiply 30 by 200, you get a good 6,000 average number of students that we've sent away in the last 30 years. And you want to tell me, why are we doing this if it is not to prepare them to take over the 16 square mile of rock? What is the purpose of what we've been doing for 30 years? Just putting money, nothing wrong with sending them away, but are you trying to build anything? And so I'm saying, let's start to look at how concretely we're going to take our best and our most brilliant minds to be able to take care of, this 37 square miles rock.
As we're getting close to wrapping up this interview,
yes, sir.
Why would you want people to vote for you? I mean, you give your whole lineup there.
Yeah.
Why the reason why. But you have this election that most people say they don't want to vote.
Yeah.
Some people are saying, well, I can vote next year, I can vote this year.
Yeah. Or postpone.
So, what is your feelings about it? And let me hear from you why people should come out to vote for you and vote for the party that you represent.
Okay. First of all, I think the UPParty, I don't know if you remember the UP 2010, and now this is the UP 2020, right? So I call it the reset, right? Because if you remember UP 2010, it was a group of young, dynamic, ambitious, almost naive, but people who sincerely want to do good for their country, who think they have something to contribute, and most of them, no issues. Let me put it like that. If you look at the group of 23 right now, you could see there's a balance between a little bit of experience, more experience, but a lot of them are, young and dynamic and energetic, and they have all these great ideas, and a lot of them very futuristic ideas. I think I fit very well with my team. I like the energy that they bring, because I think each of us has a different area of expertise. And I think my strength would be I have knowledge of the law, I have experience with legislation, but I'm also been a very passionate champion, activist for the St. Martin people, and especially the St. Martin youth, because we keep saying the youth are the future. No, the youth are the present. The youth are not the future alone. The youth are the present. We need to deal with them now, and we need to always turn to them. I've been saying this for like a lot of years now, but I remember when I first started, you got to have experience. But you know what happened? The youth are starting to tell you, well, you know what happened? So much for experience. We're going to do this because they believe in themselves. They believe in themselves. I think as an educator with over 30 years of experience, with over 30 years in education administration, I think I could bring a lot to reform in education. Like I said, I have knowledge of the law, how to make laws, Emancipation Day law that is now official. I've gone through the process. So I think I have a combination of experience, I have a combination of passion, commitment. You don't have to worry about my integrity. You know me, St. Martin, you've seen me around. You know where to find me too. If anything, you don't have to know where do I live. Everybody knows exactly where. But I really believe in St. Martin, and I believe in the potential of St. Martin people. And I'm saying, give me the opportunity on January 9th so that I may go in there and represent you. And I guarantee you, you give me that opportunity, I will be that one person. If all fall, I will be that one standing that you will not be disappointed in. I guarantee you that.